Welcome back. This is Sunday edition here on KTN News. Let's talk about the nurses' strike, which is still ongoing. The conciliatory committee meeting seeking to resolve the nurses' strike impasse has been adjourned till tomorrow. The meeting took place amidst an exchange of letters between the nurses' union and the Council of Governors over remittances of union contributions. The nurses saw still on strike. On Wednesday last week, the President Uhuru Kenyatta did issue a presidential directive telling nurses to return to work by Friday last week, failure to which they would be sacked. The chairman of the Council of Governors, Wycliffe Oparanya, warning them that there will be a roll call on Friday morning and other nurses would be hired to replace them. That did not happen. The nurses ignored that order, and the government now wants to talk. Let's listen in to what was said.
No one is above the law. Obeying court orders is not optional, and it is a requirement of all of us, no matter their place in society. Our Constitution and various labor laws, while granting the right to picket and participate in strikes, also provides for the process of determining public service remuneration by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, whose advice has equally been disregarded by our striking nurses. Consequently, we have jointly agreed to take the following urgent actions. All nurses should resume duty with effect, and in any case, not later than Friday, the 15th of February, 2019 at 8 a.m.
Honorable Court issued a court order suspending the nurses' strike for 60 days on 5th February 2019, and I have a copy. I will have to give you a copy. Secondly, the court order was properly served to the Kenya National Union of Nurses on 6 February 2019. Number 3, on 12th February 2019, the court issued an order to the union to appear before it on Monday, the 18th, 2019, for contempt. This order was served to the union on 13th February 2019. Number 4, there is an ongoing conciliation process convened by the Ministry of Labor, where the union, the Ministry of Health, National Government, and the Council of Governors have appeared and filed their memorandum accordingly. Because this is arising out of the court process. Number 5, the national and county governments stand with the President's pronouncement. A roll call will be undertaken by both levels of government tomorrow, Friday, February 2019 at 8 a.m., and nurses who fail to return to work will be dismissed, and further necessary disciplinary action will be taken in accordance with the law.
So the governors in the affected counties did not make good that threat to fire the nurses who did not return to work because the nurses ignored that presidential directive. This has been a matter between the nurses union, the Council of Governors, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, until the president intervened and gave that directive. What is your take on that directive by the president?
Well, in my view, the president shouldn't have made that directive because it came a bit early before everything was settled. But going back to the germane issues, in my view, healthcare shouldn't be a function to be run by the county governors. Now, they've confirmed for the last 6 years that they don't have capacity to manage healthcare at a county level. And we shouldn't have let the governors take that responsibility. Because when you go to most of the counties, the governors, they run the healthcare facilities as if they're running a kiosk across the road. They hire, they fire their relatives, they have no respect for professionals, they have no respect for doctors, they have no respect for nurses. They just hire anybody and everybody. And those people do not even have performance indicators. In my view, there's an opportunity now to come with a national healthcare commission, whereby doctors, nurses, and all healthcare workers are employed by a central organization. Then now the governors can request for resources that they need at their hospitals. Because you can't have one county has already paid nurses and another county has not paid nurses. There's no uniformity. And then another amorphous organization that we need to sort out is SRC. They're supposed to harmonize the allowances and tell us that if you work in an area which is considered to be normal, say in Nairobi, you're supposed to be receiving this amount of allowances.
Right.
If you're in a hardship area, maybe it goes up to 30%. You cannot now let the SRC again deploy a firefighting approach to issue. The only time you see SRC coming on board is when a court order has been issued and they do news conferences. I don't know for what purpose. You know, Sarah Serem did a very horrible job, and one was hoping that the new chairperson was going to do a solid job, but they're not doing the same. You know, you've got a nurse who checks in at an hospital and does 10 straight hours. That she can't even go out for a cup of tea. If she's out of the workstation for 5 minutes, it's a crisis. Now, this healthcare worker has no gloves, has nothing. I mean, they even expose themselves to a lot of diseases. And then you have governors employing political advisors, employing economic advisors, employing people who carry their seats, employing people. I mean, they're all over. There's massive overemployment at the counties.
Right.
Which is why, again, the National Assembly and the Senate must look at possibilities of creating that National Healthcare Commission so that when a doctor is posted or a nurse, we know that it's a uniform salaries.
All right, so you think health has overwhelmed the county governments?
Actually, everything has been overwhelming. The budget goes to recurrent expenditure. I mean, up to 90% of the money sent goes to recurrent. So they have no opportunity to do anything. The only thing that most of them have shined in, according to the auditor report, is issues of corruption. When you go to every county, you see that devolution is actually working.
All right.
Outside that, nothing else to write home.
Mark, should we have been seeing very quickly the Labour CS Ukuri Yatani rather than the president? Was the president's intervention premature and unnecessary, like the Court Secretary General said?
To be honest with you, I really questioned the wisdom of the president in his statement, in the sense that, number one, health workers, most of them, 90% of them, are county employees, and therefore, even if the president wanted to fire them, there is no document he can sign on the face of this earth that would have any effect on their livelihoods. Number two is, I think that the president should also have come out in a more reconciliatory tone in understanding the plight of a nurse. Dismas has talked about nurses that work 10 hours a day. There are nurses who, she's the only official in some village clinic all the time. She's got to literally perform the functions, or he or she has got to perform the functions of a doctor. So the president needs to also have come out as head of state to share in the plight of the nurses. However,
the president and the chairman of the Council of Governors were speaking very much in tandem. It seems like there could
be an agreement.
Yes.
Obviously, they're in agreement, but the president is not an executive to nurses. He is not the hiring authority. They are not servants of the executive, the national executive. They are employed by county governments, and even the chair of the Governors Council cannot unilaterally determine what Nyandarua County does versus Kiambu County. At the end of the day, genuinely, if even you are to weigh the strike, then the nurses' strike should have been county-based, not a national strike. But be that as may, the one reason why I support the president in what he said is when it comes to the Big Four agenda and the agenda of universal health care. servant. So we kick the can 3-4 years down the line and assume that God and Jesus and Allah and Muhammad and Buddha will have a conference in the heavenly realm and change our economics in the interim. And then when that does not happen, then we have to fight again. And that's really where the issue is.
All right. Hezbollah, what's your take on how this has been dealt with?
I think the president, the council of governors, and any other person who is critical of NASES is running away from just common sense. Now, this was a CB. NASES union to iron out issues. If there is no money, I don't think Panyako and company are so insensitive, you know, because what they are looking for is an agreement based on the CBA.
All
so
right.
the issue of court case, the issue of giving ultimatum, I think for me it's null and void unless there is fidelity to that agreement, and if the government cannot pay, they should have an all-rounded stakeholder meeting to address that. But I think fundamentally, there is a problem with the way health has been devolved. Because in my county of Migori, there are 2 counties, and I'm glad my county of Migori is not affected by this, because Governor Obado has actually had an arrangement with nurses and they're back to work. But that tells you that the Council of Governors is probably...
And that's the thing also, Esmond. Yeah. So we understand from some of these governors and what's happening there. It's not that in those counties the CBA has been implemented. It's just
an arrangement.
A local arrangement for the nurses to be able to return to work. Is that sustainable?
And that's what I'm saying. You see, if you have nurses in Migori go back to work, nurses in Kiambu are not going back to work, there's a problem. And I think the problem is not even with the nurses. What is this thing called the Council of Governors? It has a chair, it has a structure. There's even a health committee with a chair. The last time I checked, it was Governor Ongwae. You ask yourself, what do they discuss when they meet? Because health is a devolved function. There's a way in which there should be a synergy between the national government and the county government, such that a nurse in Migori is treated the same way as a nurse in Nyeri, and there is similarity in the working condition, the pay structure, when they are paid. You cannot have nurses in Nairobi say that they've been paid, and then nurses in Homa Bay complain that they've not been paid. This committee that is dealing with health in the Council of Governors ought to have discussed among all the governors to iron out issues, because I don't think it bodes well, not even for the president, but for the Council of Governors to have one council, and then there are 2 counties out of 47 where nurses are not on strike. So on what basis are these nurses going back to work? And how sustainable is it? And who are they going to blame if tomorrow they down their tools? Is it going to be Obado's problem, the Council of Governors' problem, or the nurses' union? So I think that stakeholder engagement that they're saying that was not there during the collective bargain agreement needs now to be a lot more engaging and proactive, and it needs to be made in public so that we know, because the perception created right now is that the CBA was a political tool to get nurses to vote for Jubilee.
We'll get into that. Kipchumba, do you think this leaves some egg on the face of the president and the national government?
Definitely it does, because I think it is the choosing of the people who advise them on this particular one. One, when you enter into a CBA, a collective bargain agreement, it means all issues have been weighted on the table and you have agreed at the middle ground that this is what we will offer you. And any other person will think that by the time you are agreeing on a CBA, you have looked at your resources as a government and you know that this is within the margins and what we expect to be collected from revenue. But to come back and to turn around and to tell nurses that won't pay, can't pay, is the hypocrisy of the highest order. And also, I think the good governor of Kakamega should be welcome to Kenya. There is an old adage in law that says that if a government cannot obey court orders, the sovereigns are under no obligation to obey the same court orders. This government has been at most times been known to be in contempt of court orders. Why are we now trying to force nurses? We refuse to obey the court order on Miguna. Why are we forcing nurses to obey a court order? It is the same courts that issued, and a government cannot choose which orders to be enforced and which are not to be enforced. And we have stated in this show that there is a lot of benefit in obeying court orders. Look at where we are now. We do not have the moral fiber to ask nurses to obey the court order, because since 2014, the Jubilee government has been known systematically to be disobeying court orders. So now we are in a situation where we need these court orders to function, to favor the state, but they can't function. The other thing is this: the president is the father figure of this country. When there is a dispute in the Council of Governors, I think bare minimum wisdom states that he should not come and get entangled in the battle. He ought to come as a last resort. And going forward, we cannot run an economy on voodoo economics and run the health sector like a beauty shop, whereby you come in, you bring two hair or whatever, some chemicals. It cannot be that way. Then we need to have systems and structures whereby we know a nurse in Migori County earns the same amount, works under the patient and the nurse ratio is constant. And if there is those issues, invariabilities, those are the things that SRC should handle. And also, SRC should be telling Kenyans on a periodical time that these are the CBS that we have, and these are the budgetary implications that they have on the nation. We should not be seeing or hearing about SRC when we are just looking at who disobeyed a court order, or when the CBAs hit a stack.
All right. So let's talk about one final thing on this. We looked at a letter from the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, SRC, detailing the payment that should be made to the nurses, totaling to around 3 billion shillings, even before being backdated. And this CBA was made in November 2017. It was made in 2017. And most of the governors who are dealing with this then are not seeking re-election now if they're still in office. Is it a possibility that this was just a political carrot being dangled, because the SRC and the COG are saying, look, there is no money, and really there seems to be no money to honor this CBA?
Well, several things come to play. Number one is that the Council of Governors has embarrassed President Kenyatta, and SRC has embarrassed President Kenyatta. And in my view, President Kenyatta needs now to have a word with the Council of Governors and SRC, because they're the ones who are creating an environment for this industrial action every single day. President Kenyatta does not have time to start sorting the nurses issue. That should be left to the individual governors. And if they're unable, they should just accept liability and say, let's transfer this obligation to the national government. And then, if you're a governor in office and you sign any document, it's not about you. You're not signing in your capacity as, say, Dismas Mokua. You are signing on behalf of an organization or on behalf of a county government, and it's a going concern. So if you're going to be seeking for re-election, you must not sign some documents because of a political expediency. That you are in a hurry, you want to sign these documents so that you go and address the next rally. You must look at these issues. And it seems the case that the majority of these governors who are signing documents without knowing where the resources were going to come from, or they just signed the documents because they wanted to make stakeholders happy. And in my view, that is the wrong way of running an organization. When you commit to a document, you must look at the revenue projections.
All right.
And if right now we don't have resources, because for sure we don't know whether or not the resources are available, then the employer should come out in black and white and apologize to the nurses and say there's a limitation in resources. Maybe you have a cash flow issues. Let's suspend this, and maybe in 6 months we are going to review and we are going to backdate everything. It's important to be honest I mean, the nurses need information for control and decision making.
All right.
If you come out in the open and say, maybe KRA, the revenues, the economy is going south, we don't have sufficient resources, so give us an allowance of 6 months, I'm sure that gentleman by the name Panyako and company, they will understand that the economy maybe is doing poorly, and you know that it can be suspended.
All right, Mark,
Yeah.
is that a possibility? And where do we go from here on this issue?
Well, Dismas is quite correct. We are in a year where, in fact, you look at an article in the Standard where that talks about that we've got a lot of foreign debt repayments due this year. The cabinet secretary of the Treasury came out 2 days ago and there was an article that talked about the need to restructure our debt in the sense that we cannot have that much foreign debt because of our foreign exchange earnings. So clearly we're in a situation where we need to cut our cloth according to our size. Now, that does not exclude the very real reality that a lot of nurses and a lot of teachers and a lot of public servants are grossly underpaid in this country. But what is required is we need to have a very pragmatic conversation concerning the issue. If there is no resources, and I can bet you there are none, based on how various sectors of government are cutting back on the expenditure, there are no resources to be allocated for nurses to get their CBAs done. But that tells you, and I've mentioned this when I talked about it before, that our political class rules this country 3 months at a time. No one thinks 3 years at a time, 5 years at a time. 3 months to an election, let's do what is required to win an election. 3 months to budget, let's do what is required to win the budget. We saw that when our parliamentarians had postponed increasing fuel tax for 5 years, and then were still surprised that their postponement had come to an end. And that is the problem of the kind of leadership we've selected, especially in county governments. You think, what kind of crazy person would say that I have gotten money for the first time in my county, I will dedicate 90% of it to paying salaries? Only a madman can do such things. But that's because they think only 6 months, 3 months at a time. Part of the reason we're in trouble with our hospitals and the healthcare system entirely in the county governments is because this county governor is much more satisfied to have an ambulance bought with which is a billboard bought by the county government of XYZ that is more flashy than buying Panadol, which is needed at the hospital, because that Panadol will not be branded with his logo. That is the problem. We chose insane people who have short-term plans for the future, and then we want to solve long-term problems.
Husband, very quickly, political games, is it a possibility in such serious issues?
I think it is. In Kenya, I think just like in so many other places, politicians think about the next election and not the next generation. I can't buy the fact that there is no money to pay nurses. I mean, that's just lazy thinking. I mean, you cannot have a recurrent budget of 90% and say that there is no money to pay nurses. Then increase it to 100% and say that we live in a country where we cannot develop, we will just sustain people. Because I'll tell you for free, I teach in a university where there's a very vibrant nursing course, at degree level. And what nurses go through is rigorous. And nursing is a calling. No one goes into nursing because they're looking for money. So the bare minimum that the government can do is go out of its way, get the money, make nurses comfortable. Because what they do is they provide health care.
Kipchumba, where do we go from here? Very quickly, 30 seconds only.
One, from here this country need one honest moment, a moment of honesty with itself. We cannot be telling the world we are discussing about a referendum and we are telling people with the same mouth we do not have money to pay nurses. If you can pay or finance a referendum, pay nurses. How much money are we losing through corruption? We are told that each year we are losing a trillion. Nurses only require, I think, 4 billion. Pay the nurses. And then again, we need to rise above the running a political economy through economical conmanship. When you promise people that I'll pay you in 2 years' time, 10 shillings, pay them when that time comes, organize and pay them. Because we might seem to be running an economy whereby it is only a happy economy. I say this so long as Ben you are happy, I move on.
Yeah.
When you come for my accountability part, I start dilly-dallying. A government that is supposed to outrun the people who are running it now should be able also to live to the promises of the people who did those promises, because government in itself is continuous. That is why we do not subject government to an election. We subject the office holders.
All right. Let's take another quick commercial break here on Sunday edition. Remember, conciliation talks between the affected nurses and the other stakeholders continue. When we come back, we shall be taking a look at the referendum question. The very latest in that, including a looming impasse, political impasse at that, over the timing of that referendum. Stay with us.
As Senate, we are prepared for reforms. Like you have been told, you already have a document. We are prepared to ensure that we safeguard devolution and we can never go back. So in 1966, Senate was removed and Majimbo was abolished. Everything was decentralized. So when people start talking again about doing away with the Senate, what you are telling us, you want to take us back to 1966. This is the only institution that is committed to defending counties and defending devolution. So we must position ourselves, we must be strategic.